TLDW. Simply go and buy the AYN Odin 2 from us at DROIX.co.uk or DROIX.net. It's an awesome handheld and you won't regret buying one. Don't believe us? Watch the rest of the video. The box slides out with a card that has all the controls and specs on it. It's a bit useless, but at least it's shiny around the edges. Underneath we have the AYN Odin 2 itself. We will show it in more detail in a moment. There is a USB Type-C charge cable and it will also come with a charger. We will include the correct adapter for your country. The AYN Odin 2 measures around 8.8 by 3.8 by 0.6 inches, slightly larger than the original Odin. It weighs around 420 grams, which is around 55 grams heavier than the first. It's available in 5 colours: transparent blue, transparent purple, black, cold grey and white, which is shown here. The display is a 6-inch IPS touchscreen with a resolution of 1920 by 1080. It has a decent brightness and the colours look good, no complaints here. You have of course all of the standard controls you would expect to find on a handheld, including dual Hall effect sticks, D-pad and gaming buttons. There are 2 additional buttons at the bottom for home and return. Along the top there are analog triggers and shoulder buttons, a micro SD card slot under the cap, followed by a micro HDMI port for output to a monitor or TV. On the other side are a volume rocker and power button. The bottom has a 3.5mm headphone port and a USB Type-C port which can be used for charging. And the back has 2 custom buttons which can be configured in the settings. Around the analog sticks and on the sides are LED lighting which can be configured in the settings. You can switch off each pair of LEDs and change the colours and brightness. The light options are static. We wouldn't mind seeing some colour switching, fades, pulsing, etc. The AYN Odin 2 is powered by the Qualcomm Kyro Octa-core processor with 1 GoldPlus, 4 gold and 3 silver cores. The graphics uses the Adreno 740 GPU, which will be interesting to see how it performs. RAM and storage options are split into 3 models. The Odin 2 Base has 8GB of LPDDR5x RAM and 128GB UFS 4.0 storage. The Odin 2 Pro has 12GB RAM and 256GB storage, and the Odin 2 Max has 16GB of RAM and 512GB of storage. For communications there is support for Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.3, so it's bang up to date. We don't even have a Wi-Fi 7 access point yet to test this. The AYN Odin 2 runs on Android 13, which is fairly up to date considering only a few phones currently have Android 14. Upon first boot you get a startup wizard which goes through running a few settings such as Wi-Fi, time zone and launcher preference to get you up and running. You will need to install and set up your own emulators and games. The standard Android launcher is familiar if you have an Android phone. You can scroll between screens with left and right and choose an app to load. The Odin launcher requires a little setting up, such as choosing which apps to display where. Personally, I prefer the Android launcher, but at least there is a choice. The AYN Odin 2 has the familiar overlay found in the Retroid handhelds. There are shortcuts to commonly used functions for changing the brightness, taking screenshots, live broadcasting, etc. You can also use the screen mapping to map the on-screen controls to the physical gaming controls. Simply drag and drop the icons to their respective areas and that's pretty much it. It works great with just about every Android game. As always, we run some system benchmarks which gives us performance results which we can compare with other Android based handhelds. Please note that some of the other benchmarks were performed some time ago and are not 100% like for like due to version differences, Android versions, etc. We start with 3D Mark, and usually what we do is the slingshot benchmark, but the Odin 2 was too fast for this and the score maxed out. 3D Mark suggested performing the wildlife benchmark, which also maxed out. So we ended up doing the wildlife extreme benchmark and got 3672. The other Android emulators struggle with the slingshot benchmark, so you can see a massive performance difference already. Next we have Antutu, which is a mix of benchmarks covering graphics, UI performance, etc. We got a final score of 1.5 million, clearly beating the Retroid and Anbernic handhelds by a massive margin. and over double the previous highest results with the GPD-XP+. Our third test is Geekbench, which tests the single and multi-core processor performance. We get a single core score of 1485 and multi-core score of 5047, far higher than the GPD-XP+, and again a massive difference between the Retroid and Anbernic handhelds. I have to admit I don't actually play many native Android games on handhelds, usually only emulators. I installed Call of Duty and FIFA Mobile to give them a go. After a few moments using the on-screen mapping to configure the controls, I was straight into the action. Call of Duty is running on the highest graphics settings, which looks great. And with controls mapped, it is a breeze to play and makes the games far too easy. FIFA is also very enjoyable when playing with a gamepad, though you do miss a bit of the directional shooting and passing when using it. I tried a few other games and had no issues at all with performance. If the game did not support gamepads natively, it was easy to screen map it. Everything works exactly as you would expect it to. As you have probably guessed, the AYN Odin 2 is going to be amazing for emulation. Let's take a brief look at some consoles and handhelds emulation performance. For PlayStation emulation, we are running DuckStation. You can increase the rendering resolution to 5x, which is 1080p, as well as a few extra graphics tweaks, etc. We got a solid 60 FPS in every game we tried. With the Dolphin emulator, we also got solid frame rates in all of the games we tried. Depending on the game, you can run from 1x up to 3x rendering resolution to improve the visuals. This extends to both consoles the emulator supports. With the PlayStation 2 emulator, Ether SX2, we see some excellent performance. Most games will be running at great speeds at 1x rendering resolution. Depending on the game, you can increase this up to 3x and it looks amazing. I can finally play Outrun at full speed on Android. The PP-SSPP emulator handles PlayStation portable games with ease. We tried our usual range of games at 4x rendering resolution to 1080p with various graphics improvements, and we had a solid 60 FPS. No problems at all here. Moving on to more recent handhelds with Citra. We saw excellent performance in the games we tried. Generally, we are running at 1x or 2x resolution to keep it running smooth, but with a good number of games you can increase it as high as 4x. You may see occasional stutters while shaders are caching, but nothing too major. The Vita emulator is also running amazingly well. We see that in many games that had performance issues on the Anbernic and Retroid devices, that they are now running perfectly. There are some graphics and performance issues with some games, but this is more down to emulator compatibility than the Odin 2. And now for the big one, the Yuzu emulator. We can safely say that some games do run at full speed with barely any noticeable lag. However, this is generally for the lower demanding games, mainly 2D or indie style games, but there's also quite a few high-end 3D ones. Don't expect all games to run this great. The latest first party titles, for example, will be running at around half the speed it should be. Keep in mind that this is still a very impressive result considering what we are running the emulator on. Let's get straight to the point. This handheld is f***ing awesome if you have not already realised. Just go and buy one now from us at DROIX.co.uk or DROIX.net for international shipping. Use the discount code ODIN250FF on the checkout for a 5% discount. Please note that the code will expire 1 month after posting this video and it can't be used when there's a sale or other promotion running. So let's get started with the device itself. It feels comfortable in your hands, just the right size with a great 6-inch display. I did find the D-pad and buttons a little loose feeling when compared to the original Odin. They felt more secure and not as rattly sounding and smooth motion when rapidly pressed. I'm not sure if this model is the final model or not, but I wouldn't mind seeing them tightened up a little. This is in fact my only major complaint with the Odin 2. The Android operating system is responsive and has the option of Android launcher or the Odin launcher. Personally, I prefer Android, but your taste may vary. There's a wealth of options for the Odin 2, such as performance and fan control, HDMI output, screen mapping and more. I did find the LED lighting options lacking a little though. We did not have a chance to test battery life due to time constraints, but whilst recording all of the review footage over a couple of hours, The battery went from 100% down to 70%, so we're looking at roughly 6 hours battery life based on average usage, which is very good. The real winner here is the handheld's performance. We knew when performing the benchmarks that Odin 2 was fast, and we couldn't wait to get the emulators up and running. We were definitely not disappointed. Running more recent console and handheld emulators with the higher rendering resolutions is great, and you can see and feel the difference. It does stumble a bit with the Yuzu emulator, but this is not a negative in any way. Simply seeing games run at full speed is a great achievement. The GPD XP Plus is dead. Long live the AYN Odin 2 as the new king of Android handhelds. Seriously, this is an amazing handheld. If you want the best performance for just about every available emulator, then the Odin 2 is the only option. Just go and order one now, you won't be disappointed. What do you think of the AYN Odin 2? Are you planning to buy one, or do you have your eyes on something else? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget, you can order yours now from us at DROIX. Here's the discount code again in case you missed it. Use the code ODIN250FF on the checkout for a 5% discount. Please note that the code will expire after 1 month posting this video, and it cannot be used when there's a sale or other promotion running. That wraps up our review of the AYN Odin 2. If you could give a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be great. It helps to grow this channel, and we can keep reviewing amazing products like the Odin 2. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you back in the next one.